You probably know him as one of the greatest performers of all time. His energy, his voice, and his presence on stage were unforgettable. But here's the thing. Freddie wasn't just a showman. Offstage, he was a very private person. And for years, there have been rumors about something he might have left behind. People call it different names, a vault, an archive, or just Freddie's hidden collection. For now, we'll call it the archive. As the frontman of Queen, Freddie broke all the rules. He created music that stood the test of time and inspired millions. But while the world knows the superstar version of Freddie Mercury, there's still a lot we don't know. That's where the idea of the archive comes in. Some believe it holds unreleased recordings, handwritten notes, or even personal letters, things we've never seen or heard before. So, could this archive be real? If it exists, what would it tell us about Freddie Mercury's life and creativity? And if it doesn't, why have these rumors lasted for decades? Today, we'll dive into the mystery of Freddie's archive. We'll talk about what we know and the stories from those closest to him. Freddie Mercury wasn't just another musician, he was a game changer. As the lead singer of Queen, he gave us songs like Bohemian Rhapsody, We Are the Champions, and Don't Stop Me Now. These aren't just hits, they're some of the most iconic tracks in music history. Even decades later, they still play everywhere, from sports arenas to movie soundtracks, and they've inspired generations of artists. But what made Freddie stand out wasn't just his music, it was the way he connected with people. On stage, he had this amazing ability to make every single person in the crowd feel like they were a part of something bigger. Whether it was 20 people in a club or 75,000 at Wembley Stadium, Freddie made it personal. He wasn't just performing for you, he was performing with you. At the same time, Freddie was private, very private. While his public image was bold and larger than life, he kept certain parts of himself completely off limits. He didn't share much about his personal struggles or even his creative process, and that's where the rumors about the archive come in. People wonder if this hidden collection could reveal a side of Freddie that he never shared with the world. Because here's the thing, Freddie's music and his story still feel so relevant today. His work wasn't just about great melodies, it was about breaking boundaries and redefining what a rock star could be. An archive like this, if it exists, might give us a deeper look at his creative genius and how he saw the world. So, let's get into the mystery itself. Ever since Freddie Mercury passed away in 1991, fans and historians have wondered, did he leave behind a hidden archive? And if so, what's in it? Is it full of unreleased music, personal notes, something else entirely? Now, people close to Freddie, like his bandmates Brian May and Roger Taylor, have hinted that there are recordings of Freddie's voice that no one has heard before. These could be unfinished songs or demo tracks, parts of ideas that were never turned into full Queen releases. One example is the song Face It Alone, which was finally released in 2022, decades after it was recorded. That song had been sitting in storage for years, untouched, and it made people wonder, how many more treasures like that might still be out there? And it's not just about music. Freddie was known to write down lyrics, ideas, and even personal thoughts on paper. Some of these lyric drafts have surfaced in auctions over the years, like the handwritten lyrics for We Are the Champions. Those items gave us a rare glimpse into Freddie's creative process. But what if there's more? What if entire notebooks filled with his thoughts and ideas are hiding somewhere, waiting to be found? Then there's the role of studios like Mountain Studios in Montreux, Switzerland, a favorite recording spot for Queen. It's rumored that some of Freddie's recordings from these sessions were set aside because he didn't think they were polished enough to share with the world. And if you know anything about Freddie, you know he was a perfectionist. If a song wasn't perfect, he wouldn't want anyone to hear it. Some people think those unfinished recordings could still exist, locked away in what we're now calling the archive. And then there's Mary Austin. Freddie trusted her more than anyone else. He left her his home, garden lodge, and many of his belongings. Mary has said in interviews that she's kept certain things private because Freddie wanted it that way. Could some of these items, letters, notes, even recordings, be what fans are calling the archive? It's possible. So, what do we really know about this so-called archive? Honestly, not much. The whole idea is based on speculation, bits of insider stories, and the very real fact that Freddie loved his privacy. But it's this combination of mystery and possibility that keeps fans fascinated. What we don't know feels just as exciting as what we do know. Now, let's talk about what we've heard from the people who were closest to Freddie. Over the years, only a handful of insiders have hinted at what he might have left behind. Their stories don't give us concrete answers, but they do give us clues, and they've definitely kept the mystery alive. Let's start with Mary Austin, Freddie's closest friend and the person he trusted more than anyone. After Freddie passed, Mary inherited his home, garden lodge, along with many of his personal belongings. But Mary has always been incredibly private about what Freddie left in her care. She's mentioned in interviews that some things were never meant for others to see. That's a big statement. What could she mean by that? Fans think she could be protecting letters, notes, or even song drafts that Freddie didn't want shared with the world. But Mary has never confirmed or denied any of this, which only adds to the intrigue. Then we have Brian May and Roger Taylor, Freddie's longtime bandmates. Both of them have mentioned that there are recordings of Freddie's voice that remain unreleased. Brian has said that some of these tracks are only fragments, unfinished or raw recordings from their studio sessions. And here's something interesting. Brian and Roger have both expressed a reluctance to release anything that Freddie wouldn't have considered ready. They've said they want to make sure that anything shared with the public matches Freddie's incredibly high standards. But still, this raises the question, what exactly is being held back and where is it being kept? There's also the case of unreleased collaborations. Did you know that Freddie recorded a duet with Michael Jackson in the early 1980s? The song remained unreleased for decades before finally being shared with the world. So, what if there are more collaborations like this, songs with other artists that we've never even heard about? It's not a stretch to imagine that some of these could be part of Freddie's so-called archive. Even auction houses have fueled speculation. In 2023, Sotheby's held an auction of Freddie's personal belongings, including handwritten lyrics, stage costumes, and furniture from his home. While exciting, it also led fans to wonder, was this everything? Or were some of the more personal or important items deliberately kept out of the spotlight? What wasn't included in that auction has become just as interesting as what was. And finally, there are the engineers and studio staff who worked with Queen. Some have said that there were countless hours of recordings from Freddie's studio sessions, not all of which were meant for release. A few have even hinted that there could be songs or ideas that nobody outside the studio has ever heard. Could these be part of the archive? Or are they the result of decades spent mythologizing Freddie Mercury's genius? All of this brings us back to the central mystery. Those who knew Freddie have done an exceptional job of keeping his privacy intact. They've been careful to preserve his legacy in a way that feels respectful. But their silence about what might still be hidden has only amplified the curiosity. Fans want to know what's out there and will we ever get a chance to see or hear it? To really understand why Freddie Mercury might have kept so much hidden, we need to take a closer look at how he lived. Freddie wasn't just a musical genius, he was a perfectionist in every sense of the word. Everything he did, from performing on stage to decorating his home, had to meet his incredibly high standards. And this need for perfection extended to his creative process and personal life. Let's start with the way he worked in the studio. Freddie didn't just record a song and move on, he experimented relentlessly. He would try different vocal styles, tweak melodies, or rewrite lyrics again and again until he was completely happy with the result. For example, his work on Bohemian Rhapsody is legendary. He spent weeks refining each section of the song, layering vocals, and directing every detail. This level of effort makes you wonder, How many other tracks did he work on but never finish? How many recording sessions ended with ideas that Freddie thought weren't quite good enough? Another piece of the puzzle is Freddie's love for writing by hand. He always carried notebooks or scraps of paper where he'd jot down lyrics, thoughts, or even just words that inspired him. We know this because some of these handwritten notes have surfaced over the years, often at auctions. For example, one of his lyric drafts for We Are the Champions was sold for an extraordinary price. But here's the thing, these are just the pieces we know about. What if there are entire notebooks filled with Freddie's private writings, tucked away where the public will never see them? And then there's Garden Lodge, Freddie's London home and his sanctuary. This wasn't just a place where Freddie lived, it was where he found peace. People close to him have said that every inch of the house was carefully curated by Freddie himself, from the art on the walls to the furniture in the rooms. But what's really interesting is that Freddie had a room in Garden Lodge that was reportedly off-limits to almost everyone. Some believe this could have been where he kept his most personal belongings, letters, photographs, unfinished lyrics, or even demo recordings. Freddie's private nature extended beyond his home. He was deeply loyal to the people he trusted, but very selective about who he let into his world. Even those closest to him have said that Freddie rarely opened up about his personal struggles. If he did keep an archive, it's possible that it wasn't meant for anyone else. It could have been a space where he processed his thoughts, free from the judgment of others. And then there's the music he created during his final years. While battling AIDS, Freddie continued to record songs despite his declining health. Tracks like The Show Must Go On and These Are the Days of Our Lives are hauntingly beautiful. They show us Freddie's incredible strength and determination during that time. But it's also believed that there were additional songs recorded during these sessions, possibly unfinished or too personal to release. Could those be part of this mysterious archive? Given Freddie's perfectionism, it's likely that he left behind much more than what we've heard so far. Freddie once said, "I like to be surrounded by splendid things." That applied to his entire life, his music, his home, and possibly even the things he chose to keep hidden. For someone so careful about everything he shared with the world, it's no surprise that parts of Freddie Mercury remain a mystery. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly how he wanted it to be. But Freddie's diagnosis didn't stop him from creating. Even during his final months, he was still recording songs with Queen. Tracks like The Show Must Go On, written when Freddie was gravely ill, are a testament to his strength and determination. These songs are deeply emotional, but they also raise a question. Were there other recordings from this period that haven't been released? Could there be even more unreleased material? Songs or vocal takes that were too personal or unfinished to share? Another key figure during this time was Mary Austin. As Freddie's closest confidant, she was tasked with managing much of his estate after his passing. Mary has repeatedly emphasized how important it is to protect Freddie's privacy, a sentiment she's carried through in how she's handled his belongings. In interviews, she said that some things belong to Freddie and only to Freddie. This has fueled speculation that Mary might be safeguarding letters, notes, or recordings that Freddie didn't want made public, either because they were too personal or because he didn't consider them ready to share. There's also the emotional connection that Freddie's bandmates, Brian May and Roger Taylor, have to his legacy. Both have admitted that there are unreleased recordings of Freddie's voice stored in Queen's archives. However, they've also expressed hesitation about sharing those recordings, fearing it could feel disrespectful. For them, Freddie wasn't just a bandmate, he was a friend. And their decision to hold certain items back might just be their way of keeping a part of Freddie for themselves. For those who knew Freddie, losing him wasn't just about losing an artist, it was about losing someone they deeply loved. The secrecy surrounding his archive could be as much about preserving his memory as it is about protecting his privacy. Mary Austin and the members of Queen have guarded his legacy with care, ensuring that Freddie is remembered for his brilliance and creativity, not just the circumstances of his death. In the end, Freddie's private nature and the tragic circumstances of his final years make this mystery even more poignant. The archive, whether it exists or not, symbolizes the parts of Freddie's life that he kept for himself. And maybe, for those who loved him, keeping those parts hidden isn't just about respect, it's about love.